All right, guys. So I just want to run through one of the materials I've shared earlier, right? So this is a Git cheat sheet, okay? And yeah, I mean, if you don't know about me, you can basically find some of my information here. You can check out my website for more details, right? But let's just dive straight into what we want to cover here, which is Git, right? So following the details of this document, I've also added some key examples. By the time you scroll down, you see some of these examples right here. We are going to experiment with most of them. Let's start by creating a simple folder. So I'm simply going to navigate to my desktop. Let's just call this Git cheat sheet. Yeah, so cheat sheet. Okay, so Git cheat sheet, and I can clear this. All right, so Git is basically a distributed version control system that tracks changes in your source code, in your programs, in your projects. Right? We are going to. By the way, you can see some of the key concepts here. Right? It's a distributed system. It has snapshots. These snapshots can basically help you store your data more like in chunks over time, right? So that you can simply navigate back to the previous snapshots, right? And of course, using things like diffs, you can basically check differences, right, between what you had before, what you have now, right? That kind of thing. Okay, so yeah, it has three states: the modified state, the staged, which are basically changes marked for the next commit, and the committed state, which are changes safely stored in the local database, right? The local Git database. Okay, the modified states are basically the changes that are in the working directory, right? You haven't pushed them into the staged environment, neither have you committed them. Okay, so we have branches, and branches are basically lightweight pointers to commits that enable parallel development. We also have a remote repository feature, right? So you have the ability to share repositories that your team members are working on. You can basically include remote origins, right? So you can have maybe you create a version of your project on GitHub, right, which is the online repository, right. You can then include that repository in the local projects, right, by saying git remote add. Okay, so you can include that repository and then push your code to GitHub, and you can then configure on GitHub. You can add collaborators, and those collaborators can work with you on the project. So yeah, yeah, so that is it. So when do you want to use Git? You want to track the changes and maintain the history of your code. You want to collaborate with others, overwriting each other's work. You want to work on multiple features simultaneously using branches. You want to revert to previous versions if something goes wrong, or you want to work offline and synchronize later with your repository on the web or on the cloud somewhere, right? Whether on GitHub or Bitbucket, or you simply want to maintain different versions of your project. Okay, so let's dive into some examples. This is how you initialize your. By the way, I have my terminal opened up, so you can of course use any other terminal you have. It can be PowerShell, it can be your command, which is CMD, right? You can also install other types of terminals. I mean terminal emulators, right? I think we have Commander on Windows. I'm using a Windows right now, but this set of commands would also work on a Linux if you're using a Linux or a Mac, right? So yeah, let's dive into it. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to set up a Git uh, repository. I need to initiate that repository here with Git in it. So yeah, I'm basically initializing Git. But one thing I would want to make you understand is if you don't run that command, if I run Git status, you see it tells us, oh, fatal, not a Git repository, right? So which means we do not have a Git repository initialized here. So I need to first say Git init, and that would initialize the empty Git repository in this specific directory. Okay. All right. So now we have done that. You probably want to clone if you already have, a repository somewhere that you want to clone into this your local environment. But we're not going to do that now. We'll come back to this later. Okay. So let's start by trying some of the configuration commands. So you can configure Git so that it would store your name as well as your email, because this will be used to track the changes that you make across that repository. So I can say git config global. So I already have, you know, my information here, right? But you can simply say git config global, and you can set your username by simply saying user.name, and then you put in your username, for example, Marvelous Solomon, just like this, right? Of course, when you do that, you just have to hit enter. So you hit the enter key. I already have that configured, and the next one would be git config, yeah, config global. So user.email, just like this, and you have to configure your email. So it can be me at solomonmarvel.com, right? So that can be your email configuration. You can use git config dash dash list to list your config, right? And git config dash dash global init.default branch main, which is to say, when I create a new branch, when I create a new repository, the default branch should be main. By default, you get master, but what we're doing here is to now say, when I create a new one, it should be main, not master. Okay, so yeah, staging changes. So let's assume in this project we probably have, I don't know, should I make a Python? Let's do like a npm init-y. So let's create like a simple, you know, oh, I think I almost forgot. It's a Python program. So I would simply say, let's remove package.json. Okay, so I'm going to create a new file. I'll probably just pull this up. Yeah, the command I wanted to use will not work in here, so that's a Linux command, touch. There's an alternative though, but yeah, let's just say Python or main.py. Okay, so we have main.py as a file created in here. Okay, so let's go back to the terminal now. I have a file. If I run the ls command, ls command is simply saying list, right? So you see main.py. Okay, so now that we have this file in here, if I say git status, see, it's telling us we have created a file. So git status is one of the commands. Can I close this for now? Yes, I can. Okay, so we have a couple of commands we're going to be trying, which is git add to add that file. We can add a specific file, or we can add everything by just using the git add dots, right? Git add -a is also going to add all files in the repository. Git add -u will only add the tracked files, but let's go ahead and simply say git add. By the way, I did not write any code in here, so let's go ahead and come on, I don't have them here. That is a bit weird. Okay, I think I still have to, I did not want to pull up. Okay, that's fine. Let's do it this way. So yeah, so you can see everything from here at a glance. Okay, so I'm going to simply have def, hello world, or let's say print hello. See what's going on there. I'm going to pause this. All right, so I had to take off one of the package that was causing that error. So this is what I have now. I can simply say print hello, just like this, and I pass my name, let's say Marv, and I say hello Marv, right? So if I proceed to pull up my terminal here, so I can simply say, yeah, let's call Python with the name of the file, main.py. Oh yeah, I forgot to return. Yeah, so I need to say response, just like this. I said print response, right? So this is basically going to allow me print the output of that function. So I have hello Marv. So now I have something in this file, right? If I go back to my terminal, I can simply say git status. Okay, and now I see that we have made some changes, but we don't have any commits. Neither have we included this in the stage environment or in the stage state. So I can simply say git add all, right? So if I say git status now, I get oh, we don't have any commit, but there are some changes that we can commit, right? Because it's a new file that have been added to the stage state. So I can choose to unstage it by saying git arrow m, right? I can use that command to remove that item, by, of course, entering the name of the file, git arrow m, main.py in the file section there. But I want to commit this, so I can say git commit, and you say -m, right? -m is saying I need to enter a statement here. What is the description of the commit? So I can say added the print hello function, right? Okay, function feature. Okay, so I have committed this now, and yeah, I can simply say git status again to see what's going on here. It's saying on branch master. That is because I did not, configure this to have the default branch of main, by the way. So on branch master, there's nothing to commit. Our walkthrough is clean, right? Okay, so I can use other commands. We'll get to that shortly. So let's simply go back to our document. All right, let's scroll down. So we have tried the command here, which is git commit, right? You can actually use git commit amend with this dash dash amend to make amendments, to your previous commit, which is the last commit, right? And you can say, oh, git commit amend, no edit, right? I keep the previous message. I just want to add this to the previous commit. Yeah. So we have git commit dash I, which gives you an interactive way to commit. Okay, so we have checking status and history. We have been using git status. We have git log, which would give you your commit history. So we can say git log, just like this. You get your commit history. If you have 100 commits, it's basically listed here. You just have to keep, moving down the logs to see your commits. Okay, and you can check specific commits, right, by simply using git show. So we have something like this. I'll just take maybe not the whole hash, but yeah, you can also copy that. So I can say git show. I can paste the hash, gives me the commit detail, right, and the information. So you see, when you see plus, that is basically what was added. When you see minus, it's basically what was removed. What do I mean by that? Let's leave this place and sorry, give me a second. Let's simply yeah, see, okay. So let's add something here. So I'm simply going to say def be show. Okay, add. I'm going to have like a and b, just like this. Okay, so I want to return int as well. Return a plus b. Say print add 1 plus 2, just like that. Okay, so this is going to print. So if I run this again, I have 3, correct? That is what I have in my Python code. Now let's come back here. If I say git status, you see we have the same file now, but it was modified, right? Okay. If I decide to say git add or git commit added new function add. Okay, so main file. All right. Now I did not really. I think I only deleted like a line, but I'm going to do another delete right now. So I'm going to take this off, right? And instead I'm going to simply say print, just like this. Okay, so I can save this now by adding again, committing. Okay, I would say removed, or I would say refactored the print line to be one statement. Okay, so let's close that, and yeah, so now I have a new commit. I can simply go back to my terminal here, and by the way, these things I'm doing in this terminal, I can also do them here, but I just prefer to do it here. Okay, so let's say, let me zoom in again, clear. I'm going to say git show, or by the way, let's start with git git logs, right? So basically what we have here, remember git log. So we can have git log, and now we now have 3 commits, right? Let's look at the most recent one, right? Which is what we have in the head here. Let's look at the most recent one. So this is refactor the print line to be 1 commit, right? If I should copy this, Control C, and I just say git show. Sorry, yeah, okay. So if I say git show, just like this, and I paste that. All right, so let's go down. You see, it's showing us what we have removed. We basically made some adjustments. We changed what we had here, and we just made it, a single line, right? So you're seeing what was there previously, and then what we've added now. So let's take that off as well. I'm going to clear this. Give me a second. All right. Yeah. So we've been able to check that, git log, git show. You can also use git diff. I mentioned that earlier. So git diff, that would basically show you like the difference in what you have previously or what you have now. Of course, that's for unstaged changes. You see, when I put that command, I did not really get any feedback because I don't really have anything that is unstaged. So you see, working tree is clean. But if I say git diff staged, I still don't have anything in the stage right now, okay, except I add a new file, so you can experiment with that. Git branch, this basically shows you your local branches, right? So if I say git branch, I only have the master branch. I can basically use git branch r for my to check for remote branches. I don't have any remote repository added to this project right now. Git branch a would show us all the branches, both local and remote. So I can say git branch a, although we still have just one branch. I'm going to create a git repository where I will show you how this would work, and we're going to do that now. So let's oh, by the way, before we do that, you can actually create a new branch, right? So I can say git branch. Let's call that okay, I would say dev main, right? Or main dev, I don't know. Let's just call that Marv. Okay, so we have a new branch called Marv, Git branch. So you see, we have a new branch called Marv right there, and we can also create and switch by using git checkout. So git checkout -b, we're creating a new branch and we're switching to that branch. Git switch is basically used to create and switch is a new syntax. Instead of using git checkout, this is a new syntax, basically doing the same thing as this. Git branch -d is used for deleting. So we have safe delete, which is the small letter d, and we have force delete, which is the capital letter D. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and create a new. Yeah. Let's jump into this. I think this is currently on incognito mode. Give me a second. All right. So I'm currently on GitHub. You can see my GitHub profile here. Please do well to follow me if you don't mind. So let's go to my repositories. I'm going to create a new repository from here. I would simply say new, and yeah, you can just navigate to github.com/new, right, for that. Let's say git tutorial. By the way, we called it git cheat sheet. Okay, so I have that. I'll just say simple git cheat sheet training or class, whatever it is. This is public, it can be private if you don't want others to access it. We'll get to learn about GitHub. So for now, let's just keep it public. I would simply click on create repository. So this would create that repository for me. You are also given the commands that you can use to add, this remote repository to your current local repository. So I can copy this one by one. The first one is git remote add origin, right? So you have to copy this. Remember, this is public and it has to be your account. So if you are not signed into your account already, one thing you can do is to simply one easy way to do it, just go ahead and download GitHub desktop, right? We shared the link with you already on Discord, so you can just download GitHub desktop just like this. Okay, so go to GitHub desktop and you'll be able to find, yeah, so click on download for Windows. If you're on a Mac or Linux, I'm sure you would see an equivalent. I don't think there's a version for Linux, right, for Ubuntu if you're using Ubuntu. But another option that I usually recommend is by using the gh command, which is the GitHub CLI. So let's say gh download for Windows. All right, so GitHub CLI. Once you have GitHub CLI installed, I think it's much easier to basically authenticate, right? You probably need it as well for other things, right? So it has its own set of commands that you can learn later, right? And yeah, it's a great alternative to using the UI. Okay, so if you are using the GitHub CLI, I can just say gh auth login, right? And this would basically ask me some questions. I want to log in via GitHub. I'm using HTTPS. I want to authenticate with my GitHub credential, and I would say log in from the web, right? Okay, so press enter to open your browser. So here it's going to ask me, who do I want to log in as? I would say as Solomon Marvel, which is my username. I click on continue. It would ask me to enter a code here, and the code can be found right here, right? So I can just copy this code, and paste it right here. By the way, I'm already authenticated, but the moment you do this, right, it's going to authenticate your PC against your account. So whether it's a public or private repository, you should be able to, work with your repositories. Okay, so let's copy this one more time. Let's stop this. Okay, so with Control C. Let's clear this first, and I'm going to paste that URL here. I have added this to my remote origin now, so I can say git remote, and you would say I have origin there, which is basically pointing at this URL. Okay, so next I can say, okay, git branch. This is basically going to create a branch main, right? So it's going to basically point that branch to main, right? Yeah, okay, so let's say git branch now. So what you're seeing is that we actually had master before. So by saying git branch dash m with the capital letter M, we have basically renamed it to main instead of master that we had earlier. Okay, let's copy this, and we can paste that now, which is git push -u. We are pushing this to origin, and we're pushing the branch main, right? So we're pushing main specifically. So if I push this now, it's simply going to push that code right to this remote location. So if I click on code, let's see what we have. We have the main.py file now here, right? Okay, so if I go back one more time, I check main, you see I don't have Marv here. Remember, I created a branch called Marv, but Marv is not in our remote. Okay, what we can do is to simply say git push. Git push would push everything, right? But we can as well say git checkout. Let's add some code to Marv, right? Git checkout Marv. Okay, so now this is Marv. I'm going to say, oh, I can't use this command again, so I have to pull up the other option. I usually forget the exact command on Windows. Let's create a new file. I'll call this marv.py, and in here I would say get Marv's information. Okay, so let's just say we have this is meant to give us like an object, it can be a dictionary, but let's just say a string for now. Okay, all right, so return Marv is cool, dude. All right, that's great. We can import that from here, so I can simply import that from here. I would say Marv import can't remember the exact get Marv's info. Okay, let's come down here, and I will just say print get Marv's info, which is a function. So I can run this now. Let's run this Python. Okay, so you see Marv is a cool dude. We're able to import that function into this file. All right, so this is our imports. Let's say imports function from marv.py. Now remember, we are in a different branch, which is the Marv's branch. So if I say git status here, by the way, I would rather do this here. If I say git status, you see we have modified, right? This is a file we modified here. If I say git add, git commit, I would say added the marv.py file. And yeah, I can simply push this, right? But I need to, of course, configure the upstream first. So let's paste that and let's, run it. It's simply going to push our entire code. So now we can go back here, and you'd see Marv had two push, sorry. So I can refresh, so I can see Marv here. Let's refresh. Okay, when I refresh now, you see I have Marv, right? So if I click on Marv, you see I have two files in here, right? Main.py, marv.py, including the file that was in there. But in the main branch, which is what I have here, I still have one file, without the import, right? So that is how you basically use branches. You create like a different code in there, and you can choose to merge when you want to merge, right? So if I should check git branch just to see, I am currently in the Marv branch. If I should go back to git checkout main, if I should go back to the main branch, not main.py but just main, you see I have switched to main. The branch is up to date with origin main, which is saying what we have in the main file locally is up to date with what we have online, right, which is on GitHub. Okay, so if I go back to VS Code, now that I've switched, you see I don't have the marv.py file here. I still have the main.py file that does not contain the input or printing out the Marv is a cool dude thing, right, the function. So that is how you work with branches. I can choose to merge, right, by using the command git merge, right? Git merge. I am currently in main. I can merge with Marv, which is the branch I created. And you see it brings in the items we have in there into main. So if I do ls, which is to list the files, you see I now have marv.py file here. And if I do git status, you see it's telling me your branch is ahead of origin main by one commit. So I have to push the merge. The merge was offline, so I have to push that merge to what I have online. So I can simply say git push, and git push is simply going to push that file. So if I should go back to GitHub and I refresh, right here in the main branch, I now have, those changes. Okay, that is how you work with, Git merge, right, and Git push, as well as adding the origin, which is Git origin. Yes, you can add multiple origins, right? You can have multiple origins, and you can choose where to push to, or you can choose to push to all at the same time. All right, so now we understand some of these commands, git branch, git checkout, git switch, deleting a branch. I did not delete a branch here, but you can do that, right? You can do that by simply running this command, git branch -d marv, right? So if I do that here, it's simply going to delete the marv branch, but we don't want to do that. Let's move on to the next command that we have here. Okay. All right, so navigation, git checkout, we've checked this out already. Remote management, git remote -v. This would list, the remote branches, the remote locations you have. So git remote, remote -v, just like this. So you see we have, a single remote origin, but of course, we have that same remote for fetching and also for pushing. Okay, we have git remote set URL to set a new URL for your remote, or to rename or to change the URL for your existing remote, origin or your remote location. I usually call it origin, but let's just say location would be the right term for that. Okay, so we can use fetch to fetch updates, right? We can use fetch all to fetch all updates. Obviously, we can use git pull to pull those updates, right, and those changes. So let's assume I navigate to GitHub here, navigate to the main the marv.py file. Now I'm in the main branch. Remember, I can edit this right here on GitHub, and I can simply say df get Marv's email, right? Something like this. Okay, so let me zoom in so you can see it clearly. So get Marv's email. I also want this to return a string, right? So I can say return Marv's email is me at marvdo.com, something like this.com. Yes. Okay, so this is what I have when I try to return Marv's email. Okay, so I can save, so I can actually commit the change here. I say updated marv.py, included function to get Marv's email. Okay, so something like that. Let's commit. All right, so I've made that change online. If I say back in my terminal, if I say git fetch, so let's see what we have. Git fetch is going to tell us, oh, there were some adjustments, right? In this specific file. If I go back to code here, it's telling us there was an update, but yeah, I mean, incoming changes, right? This was modified. Okay, so we are getting the status that, oh, this was modified. How do we actually get that status, to reflect in here? We simply have to pull. So git pull. So if I pull that right now, it's simply going to bring in, that code in marv.py. So which is what I have here now. Get Marv's email. This was, this change was made online, but I have it right here locally. Okay, so now I have, get Marv's email. Let us. Yeah, we can basically play around with code there, but I think we don't necessarily have to do that. We have git pull rebase, which is going to, rebase instead of merge. If you probably want to, overwrite or do some things, maybe you're having some conflicts. If you're having some conflicts, of course, it's better to, resolve those conflicts so you don't override the working code. It's usually very difficult to, fix some of those problems if you make a terrible mistake. Okay, so these are the commands you can use for pulling your changes: git pull rebase, git pull by specifying the remote location and the branch, which can be origin and branch. You can also push. Oh, by the way, this was push. Yeah, git push. You can also push to your origin. So this is exactly what we have here, right? Git push origin. You're setting this as the upstream, which is what we've done already before. Git push force. You are forcing the push. So even when it says, oh, it can't push, there's a merge, there's a conflict somewhere. You're forcing this to push, which sometimes, I mean, it depends on how you want to use it. You might really need to do that, but sometimes it can actually mess up your entire code base. All right. Especially if it's a production branch or something. Okay. What we usually do is to ensure we have like separate branches for different things. So you can have a branch for development, you have a branch for staging, you have a branch for production, which is code that is deployed. You don't want to change things there anyhow. But of course, while you are learning, you can play around with multiple branches. We'll call them branching patterns. So you get to learn that maybe much later. We have branching patterns where you basically create branches for fixes or for features. You probably get to learn that much later. We're not covering that here. So we have stashing, right? And these are commands for this is for git stash, for example. And yeah, so the question right now is what exactly, when you talk about stashing and merging, remember I already mentioned merging, I explained merging. So I'm going to basically point out stashing and merging. All right. So when you talk about stashing is a way to, save a specific code that you're working on, right? That is not ready for commit, so that you can switch to a different branch and do some other work, right? If you try to switch when you don't have a commit, a code that you've committed or you've basically added to the staging area, I mean, most times tell you, oh, you have to commit, right? You have to commit before leaving this place, right? You have a lot of things going on here. You have to commit first. But if you're using the stashing option, you can actually, like save your code somewhere, right? You go to your other repositories, do whatever it is you want to do. Then you can come back and continue from where you left off, right? Yeah, you can basically see a list of stash. You can apply stash, basically if you have git stash apply, you're keeping that stash, you're keeping that specific code base, right? You don't want to remove it. If you say git stash pop, you're basically removing the stash after applying, right? You can say git stash drop, right? With stash name. Or you can simply say git stash clear by removing all the stash. Okay. We have git merge, which is used for merging your branch or your branches. I've mentioned that already. You have some changes you've made in Marv. You want to merge that to main. You say git merge git merge Marv. At that point you're already in main, right? Which is what we did before. You also have the rebase command. I've also explained that. Okay, so let's talk about reset and clean. So git reset. By the way, I used these commands, these explanations here. So I used this to basically put some detail, right? Short and straight to the point. Git reset is used to basically unstage a file if you specify that file in here. To undo your last commit and keep changes staged, you can simply use git reset soft, right? This will basically undo the last commit but keep those changes. If you say mixed, this would undo the last commit and unstage the changes. If you say hard, this would undo the last commit and discard the changes. So you have to be sure. By the way, you can specify the commit here, or you can just point straight to the head, right? Which is the most recent. Okay, so clean, you can say git clean n. This is dash n. This is used to show what to be cleaned. Git clean dash f. This will be used to remove untracked files. Git clean dash fd. This will be used to remove untracked files and directories. Okay, so that is it. So we have tags, search and filter. So you can basically create a tag. So you can add a tag to your message. If you have like a specific set of features with different commits, you can use a tag to basically see related commits, right? The way you want it to be. For example, I'm working on a feature for search. I can select or I can set a tag that I called search. So all the changes and adjustments that I've committed and pushed, when they have similar tag, I can basically group and understand that this set of commits, were made as part of, when I was working on search. Although you can actually create a branch, just call that branch search implementation, and that that's everything you've done in there is basically related to search implementation, which you can merge with your main or your dev afterwards. Okay. You can list those tags, right? You can delete a tag, you can push a tag. You can basically search for a commit like this using grep, right? The grep command where you specify the pattern. You can also search using the the string pattern. You can filter by the author of that commit. If you have multiple people working on the repository, you can also filter by dates, right? And here you can configure aliases, right? These are some commands you can use for troubleshooting, right? Git checkout with regflow. You can use regflow for troubleshooting, and then you can also check your file history, with the follow pattern and the file name. Yeah, I mean, these are basically some additional troubleshooting commands. So yes, at least with this, you should be able to start working on repositories using Git and GitHub a little bit. But we'll have a different video where we'll cover GitHub as fast as we did cover Git here. So you're going to have some tasks, while learning Git, right? Make sure you play along with those tasks, try them out, experiment with things, ask questions. There are lots and lots of people in the community there to help you learn and grow. Okay, so do yourself a favor, make sure you keep pushing, keep practicing, work with those tasks, right? And pair up with others, get accountability partners, right there on the Discord server. Make sure you help yourself grow. Okay. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.